Next department, the PUC.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Ed Harrington, General Manager of the SFPUC. We are also accepting Mr. Rose's recommendation, so I wasn't going to go through any detail on that. And we discussed most of our budget last week. I believe the central issue that you wanted us to come back and give you some feedback on was our working relationship in terms of job creation, workforce development, that part of the world. And so what I wanted to do today was to cover three different aspects. One, you had asked about the PUC staff that work on these types of activities. The second was you had asked for a bit more information about the current relationship with City Build. And the third was how can that relationship grow and expand? Yes? So the first thing I wanted to cover is our current group that we sometimes, I think, we are being confusing, where we have a Labor Relations and Community Programs group. I think often people think of that as a workforce development group, and so I wanted to go through what those people actually do with you so I can really kind of make the distinction between that kind of nebulous discussion you've probably heard in different places. If I could just walk through this grouping. The very first, Contractor Assistance Hotline and Ombuds Liaison. That's a person who actually goes out and does the site visits for local business enterprises in the region for the Human Rights Commission. So the work that they do is related to the HRC, and it goes out and actually does the site visits to make sure that people can get certified as HRC LBEs. It also supports a centralized contractor assistance hotline. We have a lot of contractors out there. If they have any problem with working through the PUC issues, getting paid, anything like that, they call this hotline. That person puts them in touch with what's going on. So again, while it's part of this labor relations community outreach, it is in no way related to workforce development. It has other things it works on related to our contractors. The next person is the Local Business Enterprise Committee Coordinator. There is a 5-member SFPUC Local Business Committee that was established under 14B of the Admin Code. And it is, again, directed at regional small businesses, not regional employment, but regional small businesses. The people that are on that are appointed by the SFPUC, but they're recommendations from regional local officials. And that's the first thing this person does, is support that group and make sure that they have access to us. The second thing, because that's not a full-time job, is this person then does the equivalent of our community outreach on programs, the same as our community outreach people. They don't really do, again, workforce development as such. They really are just working in the community to make sure people are happy with the project. She gets assigned the project just like anybody else does to make sure the community is not negatively impacted by the project. The third position is the Joint Union City Committee with Local 21. That was established in Local 21's MOU. This committee's purpose is to identify and resolve issues related to the capital program implementation and to make sure that as we move forward, as we work with city staff, consultants, and other agencies, particularly DPW, that we're all kind of okay with each other. Local 21 has a very large interest in making sure that we don't contract out more than we should. We also have an interest in making sure that we get outside contractors when we need them for specialized kind of work. This person is a temporary intern, so it's not a long-standing position, but it's an internship, and this person supports that JUCC to make sure that as Local 21 needs information from us for items going before the Civil Service Commission or anyplace else, that we make sure they get all the information they need to make sure they're comfortable with the work that we're contracting out and the work that we're keeping in the city, and it's staying within a balance. The next person on the far side is the Contractor Marketing and Strategic Outreach Coordinator. That person actually works trying to make sure that we have access to a larger pool of contractors so we get a more robust bidding environment. They do things like the contractor breakfast that Supervisor Avalos was at last week. They arrange activities so that contractors are willing to bid on our contracts and that primes and subs meet each other and come together so that we have a rich grouping of primes and subs that work on things. They particularly focus on micro contracts to increase contracting opportunities for small business. So, and again, while I think people view this grouping as working on workforce development, none of those people actually do. They really are working on contractor outreach and a variety of things that ultimately all connect to getting jobs, but they are not the people trying to place people into jobs. The two people that I've not spoken to on the bottom part, the first person is the Project Labor Agreement Administrator. And I know that there's been a lot of interest in the Project Labor Agreement and its impact on job creation. To be clear, the PLA was originally established for really labor stability. and it works very, very well in terms of labor stability. It also has language in there that was right out of Chapter 83 about goals and those kind of things, but most of this work, in fact, pretty much all the work that this person does is working with the PLA to make sure that where there are just jurisdictional disputes or disputes about where work will happen, whether it will happen in Arizona at the contractor's place or on site with our people here, they deal with those kind of things. What they also do is they are the ones who get the project labor plans. That's when you start getting into workforce development, because once you have a project labor plan, we can turn that over to City Build, we can work on it ourselves, we can do whatever we can to make sure those labor plans include the right mix of employment, that then we can start trying to really get people to fit into that right mix. This person, again, does not do the outreach, but it gets the plans in the first place, make sure that there's the right kind of mix of the jobs they're looking for. The person under that is a substance abuse coordinator. There are a lot of people working on our jobs under the PLA. There's specific wording in the PLA that standardizes substance abuse testing, and this person actually administers contracts that we typically have with local small businesses to make sure the drug testing happens. They also are the analyst that does whatever kind of reports anybody wants on what's happening with the PLA. So, and then we have the person that's in charge, the Labor Relations Community Manager, who works on all that stuff, directing the staff, but also works on coordinating opportunities for community programs. With Ms. Moyer's discussion, she was talking about adding some money to the Garden Project. The Garden Project is a project under the sheriff. The PUC puts $1 million a year into that project, sometimes a bit more. The person in charge of this Labor Relations Community Programs group makes sure the money comes in, the money goes out, make sure that Catherine Sneed gets what she wants. She does not do anything in terms of placement of people into that program or actually even assigning any of the positions, but she makes sure that if we have $1 million, we have enough work in Hetchy and Water and those places to make sure those people are well used. She does not give work assignments or pick the people or get involved in that. Yes.
Supervisor Maxwell?
Thank you. I wanted to wait until he was finished.
Okay, that's fine. We can do that.
Just another minute, if I could.
I wanted to wait for that.
The Conservation Corps also goes through that and a variety of things. But again, this person tends to work on labor-industrial relations more than workforce development, job creation, job placement. There is a person who's not on this chart who is not on there because it's not a city employee, but we do have one consultant who used to work on placements in local jobs. In the last year, since we've now added somebody who reports to City Build, the local jobs are handled through City Build. This outside consultant still does placements on regional jobs, and I'll get into how that may change in the future as we work with City Build. I was going to go into more of a discussion about City Build and MOWED, so if there's something about this, I can answer it now.
Through the chair, yes, thank you. Getting back to the project labor agreement.
Yes.
Does that also entail working with unions?
That is the major. It is again. It's the labor stability idea.
If that's working with unions, that's extremely important.
Yes.
Because our unions and how we work with them in so many instances tend to be problematic, and so who's ever been working on that or whoever is working on that, I think. We need to talk about, because there's been a lot of, we're not getting as many jobs, or the agreements aren't as robust as I feel, and a lot of us feel that they could be. So who's ever working on that and who's ever been working on that, there needs to be some better communication with a number of people. As we look at some of the more unions that we have more difficulty reaching for whatever reasons.
I completely agree. I think as part of the collective work that a number of people are involved in right now, we are looking at how we work with community organizations, with labor, through PLAs or through any other mechanism of city ordinances or whatever, to make sure that we get a richer mix of jobs. We are very aware that the PLA by itself can do more, but we need a collective thing to do more.
Right, and through the chair, when you look at the PUC contracts, they're usually very, very large.
Yes.
And that's why it seems to me that we have a little bit more leverage, perhaps, with our unions, and maybe maybe our relationships are a little too cozy in certain instances, or maybe not cozy enough in certain instances. So it seems to me we need to rethink and relook at that as we come up. And we have billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars that we're working with. And there should be more of that spread to the folks that we're talking about here.
Supervisor, there's no dispute about that. I think if you go back in history, the PLA was viewed as a way for kind of labor peace. It was not viewed necessarily as a way for workforce development. We certainly are changing our attitude about that.
So then, I guess what we need to do is talk about how we plan to do that. We can do that offline, but I would like to hear your strategy and how you plan to have a more robust relationship with those unions and with our agreements.
Be happy to do that.
All right, thank you.
And there are some citywide efforts to do that larger review of PLAs also.